Right now the big thing is, are you a buyer or a seller? How do you see this all playing out?
I think what makes the difference and determines, whether you buy or sell is really how your team is made up. If you're made up of a bunch of young stars and you think that you have a bright future and you're close, you might be willing to just miss the playoffs to not sell off the farm. But if you're close and there's some parts that can be moved and it also depends on what market you are. New York has to win, and so New York will do whatever it takes. Boston has to win, so, they may be in a different position. They may
be willing to bail earlier because like Minnesota a couple of years ago, they were buyers and they were sellers.
Yeah, and in the crystal ball, nobody has the crystal ball. They made movies over Moneyball, right? People trying to make analytics be what baseball is. And baseball's made in the clubhouse. It still is, and it always will be. So you don't know what chemistry is happening. How magical was what happened in Anaheim with what was a tragedy and it turned into something, very special for a clubhouse. And we don't know what it's like to feel that. And so, you look at, I was doing a little bit of research looking at, who is the outsider looking in and who might be able to make the playoffs. And, they say that Anaheim has a puncher's chance. And as I said, if you've got a story in the clubhouse, you never know, what you'll get.
Boston Strong was a good example.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You can be a little bit of both, but, I'm thinking in terms of you can be a seller in one perspective where you say, I've got a veteran guy that teams are going to want. But I also know I got a guy we want to get more at-bats who we think can still help us, and you can still do well. The issue then is buying too, right? Because now you've got to say, yeah, we sold this guy off. We have a young guy to go in his place, but are we going to go for that extra pitcher? Are we going to go for that extra outfielder? I think the teams that are going to be there are always going to buy, right? They may not be buying a lot, but they're always going to buy. But I think it makes sense to sort of look at it as both. And the wild card, obviously, if you can keep fans interested, it's hard to be a total seller, but it does depend on where you are. If you're in some cities, you look at a team like the Mets, right? Could they sell? They have talented guys that you can sell, but some of that may be better off for a franchise like that to wait till the offseason.
Well, but the wild card brings up what Bill talked about, how these teams are seeming to become sellers sooner and sooner and sooner, right? Like now that games matter that much, where, if I was 5 games out 10 years ago, well, that doesn't matter how much of a chance do I have, where now I'm going to catch a team that might be 2 or 3 games ahead of me that's in a completely different division, right? If you sell early to a team that's looking to buy early to make up those games that they wouldn't have had to a couple of years ago, well, you're setting the market. You're probably getting the best deal, right, when you swing it first. So I have the best chance to get a return on what I'm selling if I'm doing it early, and I think that's why we're seeing it earlier and earlier every year.
It's funny, and the best teams seem to be making the biggest deals. I think Chapman going to the Cubs. I think Verlander going to Houston. And the teams that are going to make the biggest splash this year, it seems to me, are going to be the Yankees and the Dodgers.
Yeah, both teams are obviously leading their respective divisions. I think that the Yankees certainly need a pitcher. I really do. I think that they need, Mike pointed out that depending on what your team needs, I think the Yankees need some kind of stability other than CC in the rotation. I think that, his body could break down. You never know what happens with injury. And I just think that you need leadership, in a rotation.